Hey, what's going on? So recently, Counter-Strike 2 had an open beta, and while there was only a couple things to actually play with in that beta, we got some great news. I have a very trusted leaker who has given me over 20 tidbits of information that Valve doesn't want you to know about Counter-Strike 2. Let's get into it. Counter-Strike 2 will add the Dartic Revolver as a new firearm, with the player having to perform a series of button presses to jam rounds into the cylinder in a move to add immersive gameplay. Counter-Strike 2 will allow you to jump into the mind of killed enemies to see the life they left behind for conflict, so you know how to grieve properly between matches. Counter-Strike 2 will feature a new handicap feature where the better you do in a round, the more likely your character will have a tummy ache in the following round, mirroring the real problems soldiers face in the battlefield. Counter-Strike 2 will allow players to see what a map was before you ever got to fight on it. DE Bank was a donut shop just 8 years prior to it becoming a hotbed of violence. This, according to Gabe Newell, lets players truly get into the mind of a terrorist. Counter-Strike 2 will allow players to give opponents wet willies if they sneak up on them during a match. It's not an instant kill, but it does make them immediately give up the life of a soldier. As Gabe Newell said in an interview, he wishes this was a feature in real life actually. Counter-Strike 2 will feature a character creator, but the only element a player can change is if their chosen CT or terrorist pours the milk or cereal into the bowl first. We want players to make hard decisions about war, Gabe Newell said in an interview. Counter-Strike 2 will feature the ability for a player to share a tender kiss with their husband before leaving for their match. Reminding the player of their gay lover at home will motivate them to perform better at the game. Counter-Strike 2 will be sold on a bespoke microSD card to allow instant access for Steam Deck users, though do be warned that every one of those memory cards will be soaking wet on arrival. Counter-Strike 2 will allow you to control your character via voice, but only if spoken to the character in the tone of their mother's voice. It takes a gentle touch to lead a man to victory, and we want our game to reflect that completely. Counter-Strike 2 will feature a barracks menu after matches where you can click and drag your soldier into either a mess hall to feed them, a confessional booth to grieve properly, or a bathtub to, quote, make him clean and ready for another round of Counter-Strike 2. Counter-Strike 2 will feature webcam support, allowing you to scan everyday objects to turn them into mementos your soldier carries in his pockets. Gabe Newell said this in an interview: "We want you to find solace in providing your little virtual man coins on your desk or your very own AirPods." Counter-Strike 2 will allow you to attach prefixes to your weapons, though the launch roster will contain just the word soggy. They're having trouble with keeping all the weapons dry in their latest build. Counter-Strike 2 will feature a new team joining the terrorists and CTs, an independent third party who wants to hear both sides. When playing that team, it's imperative to keep your shareholders at home in mind, even in the face of terrorism. Counter-Strike 2 will feature a potion crafting mechanic, though its only ingredients are amphetamines, Monster Energy, and instant coffee on launch. Gabe Newell said this in an interview: "Eventually, we want counter-terrorists to be able to throw spells, especially a fireball." Counter-Strike 2 will aim to be more inclusive, and as such, the player will have to select their pronouns at the start of the game. Though currently, all they have is Fey, Fair, It's, and Zay, Zem programmed in. And to quote Gabe Newell in an interview, "And to tell you the truth, we might just keep it at those." Counter-Strike 2 is set to include crossover content with the hottest games of the year. Quote, "Though the only games that got back to me were Outer Worlds, Spacer's Choice Edition, and something called Broombot Battlegrounds. So we're pretty excited," Gabe Newell said in an interview. Counter-Strike 2 will feature the ability to field strip your firearm to clear the barrel of debris. Simulating the true dangers of warfare has never been more important to the folks at Valve. Counter-Strike 2 will include the ability to turn on optional hand tracking to allow your slaps and smacks to translate into in-game damage at a pinch. Counter-Strike 2 will feature occasional breaks during matches to allow players on both teams to share snacks and exchange gossip. To quote Gabe Newell, "We hope these recesses can patch things up between the terrorists and counter-terrorists." Counter-Strike 2 will award players with golden Kevlar should they beat the staff best times on every map. To quote Gabe Newell in an interview, "We've worked very hard to optimize every second out of an optimal match, and we hope players are ready to do that too." Counter-Strike 2 will include interstitial moments where your character is thanked for their service or booed by draft dodgers while off-duty in their hometown. Simulating the true life of a soldier on either side of the battlefield is our top goal, Gabe Newell said in an interview. Counter-Strike 2 will include the ability to determine the future of your character if they hadn't had to enlist, allowing for a choice of major for them to reminisce on. To quote Gabe Newell in an interview, "We want players to consider avenues other than war." Counter-Strike 2 will feature voiceover for major events with a roster of 1,400 paid real-time announcing consultants who will get a bird's-eye view of your game. "We realized that canned voiceover can feel stale, and we wanted to change that," to quote Gabe Newell in an interview. Counter-Strike 2 will include the ability to assemble your own weapons, though they are made out of factory-second parts and all internals are highly simulated. To quote Gabe Newell, "We feel that the pride in a working gun comes from learning all the inner mechanics." Counter-Strike 2 will give players the ability to purchase food and drink from the vending machines on the maps to buff certain stats on their soldier. To quote Gabe Newell in an interview, "Salty chips and brominated sodas, I think, should make your gun shoot faster." Counter-Strike 2 will let players choose between noise-canceling headphones or no ear protection during the game. To quote Gabe Newell in an interview, "Difficult choices like choosing to hear only the music or go deaf from the gunshots makes games more interesting." So, what do you think? I'm excited for the future of Counter-Strike 2. Let me know your favorite features in the comments below, and we'll be back with more leaks. No, seriously, there will be a leak every day on my Twitter. And it's either until somebody interviews me about this, or Twitter shuts down, or I run out of pictures of Gabe Newell. Happy April Fool's Day! I wasn't even doing this for April Fool's, I have ones planned beyond that. It just lined up this way. I'm sorry. This isn't a crazy, wacky video essay. There is no game. Maybe next year.